All right, let's jump right in. When you think about learning, I bet you picture a classroom, right? Or maybe a textbook, a long night studying. But what if I told you that some of the most important learning you ever do happens when you're not even trying? Today, we're going to explore two of those hidden pathways inside your mind.
Seriously, think about it for a sec. Have you ever learned a new recipe just by watching a cooking show? Or figured out how to use a new app by seeing a friend do it? Or even just picked up on how to act in a new social situation by observing everybody else? Well, if any of that sounds familiar, then you've already experienced the first pathway we're going to talk about.
So, this first way we learn is all about observation. It's the idea that our brains are like sponges, constantly soaking up information from the people and the world around us. And the guy who really pioneered this idea was a psychologist who completely changed the game. This is Albert Bandura. See, back in the middle of the 20th century, most people thought that we only learn through direct rewards and punishments. Do something good, get a treat, do something bad, get in trouble. But Bandura looked at that and basically said, nope, that's not the whole story. He argued there was a much more social and, frankly, a much more human way that we learn. He came up with this powerful concept he called vicarious learning. And it's a huge idea. It means you don't have to touch a hot stove yourself to learn that it burns, right? You can just see the look on someone else's face when they do it, and that's it. Lesson learned. Your brain takes their experience and files it away as a crucial piece of info for you. Now, to prove this wasn't just some abstract idea, Bandura designed one of the most famous and, honestly, kind of shocking experiments in the history of psychology. He really put this idea to the test. And this is Bobo. This simple, inflatable doll became the star of an experiment that showed just how incredibly powerful our influences are, especially when we're kids. The whole setup was just brilliant in how simple it was. Okay, so here's how it went down. First, observation. Some kids watched an adult just playing calmly in the room, ignoring the doll. But other kids watched an adult go to town on Bobo, punching it, kicking it, yelling at it. Then came the really clever part, frustration. They took the kids to another room filled with awesome toys and then said, sorry, you can't play with these, they're for the other kids, just to get them a little worked up. And finally, they were put in a room where Bobo the doll was just waiting for them. And this is the kicker. This quote perfectly sums up what happened. The kids who saw the aggressive adult didn't just copy what they saw. No, they took it to a whole new level. They found toy hammers and toy guns in the room, things the adult hadn't even used, and got creative with their aggression. This showed they hadn't just learned a few specific actions. They had learned an entire category of behavior. They learned how to be aggressive. Okay, so that's the power of learning from the outside world. It's huge. But what about the other side of the coin? What about all the knowledge that quietly takes shape inside our own minds without any teacher or any model to copy at all? And that brings us to our second pathway. This is all about the cognitive side of things, the learning that happens under the surface, a lot of the time without us even knowing it's happening. So in this cognitive world, there are a couple of key ideas. You've got insight learning, which is that classic aha moment, when a solution just pops into your head out of nowhere. But what's really fascinating for our story today is this other idea, latent learning. Think of it as hidden learning. It's knowledge that you pick up and store away, but it only comes out when you actually have a good reason to use it. And the absolute best way to understand this hidden, latent learning is by thinking about mental maps. For this, we have to turn to another brilliant psychologist who used a very different kind of test subject. So, check out one of Edward Tolman's mazes. While Bandura was studying children, Tolman was studying rats. He had this hunch that these little creatures were doing way more than just blindly reacting to things. He suspected they were actually building a picture of their world in their minds. He called this a cognitive map. And you use this all the time. When you walk around your house in the dark, or when you give a friend directions without even looking at your phone, you're using a cognitive map. It's that mind's eye view of a place. And Tolman was determined to prove his rats were doing the exact same thing. His experiment was nothing short of brilliant. Okay, so group 1 got a food reward every time they solved the maze. And just like you'd think, they got faster and faster. Group 2, they got nothing. And they kind of just wandered around, never really improving. But group 3 is where the magic happens. For 10 straight days, they got no reward, just like group 2. But on day 11, they suddenly started getting a reward. And the very next day, their performance shot through the roof.
they instantly became even faster than the rats that had been getting rewarded from the very beginning. So what was going on? It's so cool. The rats in group 3 had been learning the maze that whole time. They were building that cognitive map during those first 10 aimless days. The reward didn't create the learning, it just gave them a reason to finally show what they already knew. That right there is latent learning in action. So there you have it, two incredibly powerful but very different ways that knowledge gets into our heads. Let's just put them side by side for a second and see how they really stack up. This chart just lays it out so clearly. Bandura's social learning is all external and visible. You see something, you do something. Tolman's latent learning, on the other hand, is totally internal and hidden. You're building that mental map and nobody even knows. And look at that last row, the role of reinforcement or reward. For both of them, it's not actually necessary for the learning itself to happen, but for Tolman, that reward was the key that unlocked the performance, that let the rats show everyone what was in their heads all along. And that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought to chew on. Just think about your day today. The route you took on your commute, the layout of the grocery store, the words to that song that was stuck in your head. How much of that did you actively sit down and try to memorize? And how much of it did your brain just absorb? It turns out you are learning all the time, building these incredible maps and models of your world. And a lot of the time, you don't even realize it's happening.